This mower was bought years ago, and to be honest, it looks to be in great condition. However, the truth is the maintenance on it was neglected for a lot of those years. So maintenance is easy, right? A little bit of oil here, a spark plug there, but what happens when the real problems show up? So what then? Is it really just 2 bolts here and a single bolt there? Well, if that's what you think, I'm here to burst that bubble wide open. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this Honda lawnmower, and the problem is that it was not taken care of in the last 10 years, and that neglect has finally caught up with it. So what if it needs a new carb, new bearings, and the drive gears need to be serviced? Just how difficult is it to do? Well, according to some, it's apparently pretty easy. In fact, it's so easy everyone should be able to fix it, but unfortunately, that's miles from the truth. Now, this is not a complete repair video. In fact, this is a revisit of an older repair from years ago. So if you want to see the actual repair video, click on the link at the top of the screen. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about a topic that was brought to my attention last week, and that is repairing lawnmowers is apparently easy. Now, when I realized that some consumers felt that way, I was left speechless. I've never heard so many people downplay how difficult it can be for some to fix a lawnmower that at first I thought it had to be a joke. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, let me fill you in. I was having a conversation about how sometimes fixing mowers can be expensive, not to mention difficult for some people, but some of the responses I got was the exact opposite to my point, which caught me off guard. They were saying that fixing mowers was easy and simple, and every project was trivial at best, at which point I had to really stop and think about what they were saying and realized maybe we were seeing the problem from 2 different perspectives, so let me expand on what I was saying. Now take this drive gear on this Honda lawnmower. Now to service it, I'm not only going to clean off all this old grease, but I've got to take it apart, that way I can clean the ratchet that's inside. The problem is most consumers will never do this job, and for good reason. It's not something that you need to do very often, so how are you supposed to know how to clean it? Unfortunately, in my case, it was an issue of trial and error, but if you didn't want to do it yourself, you'll have to take it to a shop, and you know that's not going to be cheap. So yes, taking off the wheel is just 1 bolt, but the rest of the job takes a bit of know-how and some time. So here's the deal. Once you've seen it done in front of you, it should give you the confidence to be able to do it yourself. At least that's what you would hope. However, some would see it and say, nah man, that's far too complicated for me, and never think about it again. Also, I will let you know that if you install the gear the wrong way on this one, it will cause some self-propel issues, so please be careful. So this was a great example of something that looks pretty easy to do, but is a bit more complicated than you would think. Now the cost to fix it if you did it yourself was almost nothing, just needing your time, and I would recommend doing it versus paying someone else to do it. Now I know I went out of order, but fixing it is only half the job, and diagnosing the problem is the other half, and that's one of the reasons why getting it done at a repair shop can be so expensive. Now, I've never had this done to me before, but when I do my diagnosis, it's under the impression that I'll be the one doing the work, so I don't normally charge for it. It's mainly done out of courtesy. However, after the diagnosis I give them, they could easily just take the machine home and then fix it themselves for just the price of parts. Now, of course, once I realize what's going on, I would then start to charge them for the diagnostic work, and I'm pretty sure they won't be coming back to me, but instead trying to find another person they can get free work from. So as you can see, fixing stuff is not just replacing parts, it's also figuring out which parts you need to replace first. I hope that makes sense, and believe me, I like to think that I've changed the minds of those who think fixing mowers is easy to do. But I'm pretty sure that they're going to keep feeling the way they want to, and they also have every right to do so. Now, as for this mower, it was anything but easy. This mower was having some running issues and was unfortunately dealt with and not fixed, which caused even more problems for it. So as you can see, the spring that controls the engine speed was horribly modified so that it would increase the engine speed and will need to be replaced. Unfortunately, they didn't find the root cause for the engine running slow to begin with, which turned out to be a pair of failing ball bearings in the clutch assembly. But after replacing both bearings, there wasn't the same load on the engine as there was before. That meant we needed to adjust the engine speed back down to normal. And even though we could have just modified the spring even more to get the job done, I think replacing the spring with one that wasn't mangled was a much better idea. So yes, replacing the spring was really easy to do, however, fixing the rest of the problem was the hardest part. So here's the scenario. You take your mower in to be serviced because the engine is running slow. But when you go in to pick it up, you get a bill for almost $200, which of course surprises you because you thought they were just going to make some adjustments to the governor spring. You then ask them why was it so expensive, and they tell you that they had to fix the root cause, which was the bearings. So in this case, it was something that they couldn't just gloss over but instead had to fix, which I will tell you doesn't always happen. Of course, this is an exaggeration of what would happen. Most often they would let you know what the problem was before starting the repairs, but the shock would still be the same. Now, what's going on with this recoil is that the spring has collected over 10 years worth of dirt and causing the recoil not to work well. So in the past, I've shown you ways to clean the spring without taking it apart. However, this one is beyond that method and will need manual cleaning instead. So on this problem, there are a couple of ways to fix it. One being what I'm doing, the other would be to just replace the spring, and the last would be to just replace the entire recoil assembly. So which one are you going to choose? Now the method I'm showing you is the free one, but it does take a lot of time depending upon your abilities. Now replacing the spring will take a lot less time, but it will cost you the price of a new spring. So if you don't have the time to spare to mess with the spring, then I would go with the more expensive method, which is to replace the recoil. Now expensive is not the best way to describe it because it is only about $15. But if you're like me and saving every dollar is important to you, then you're going to go with the free option. Now, I do want to let you know that cleaning the spring can be very dangerous, so please be careful, and because of that fact, I would completely understand if you just tried to clean the spring without taking it apart. So we do have to remember that not everyone may be able to do their own repairs, even the simple ones, and the reasons vary from health issues or they may not have any tools to do the job. So what's the other solution to getting repairs done on your mower if you're not able to work on it yourself and you don't want to take it in for what could be a very expensive service? The answer is find someone like me to fix it, and what I mean by that is that there are plenty of people out there who are capable of getting the job done without taking it into a service center. And if you are trying to find one, my advice would be to ask around with friends, neighbors, or even at your workplace. Now you may not find a small engine mechanic, but you might find someone who's worked on several machines before and should be able to help you out. Of course, I can't say anything about the price they might charge you, but I can't imagine that it would be any higher than a business that has overhead to deal with. I do have one critical piece of advice though, and that is more than likely they're going to be doing this as a favor and not as a business dealing, which means if you get under their skin or get on their bad side with the repair, you might find them unavailable after that. And if you've seen my other videos, I'm pretty sure that I've mentioned the times where I found owners to be quite rude or even indifferent about the help that I'm giving them. And because of those bad interactions, I've decided that I'd rather not deal with them, and it's not a very good situation anyone should have to deal with. Now this recoil fix has taken way too long, but I do want to let you know that if you don't wait until it gets this bad, cleaning the recoil every other year would have prevented this from even happening. The other problem with this mower is that the oil went unchecked for years and it's gotten so bad that one part of the engine has been damaged beyond conventional repair. Now I mentioned the word conventional because anything is repairable, it's just a matter of how much money and time you want to sink into a project. Now in this case, since the oil was lower than normal, but there was still some in it, only the lower parts of the engine got lubricated. That meant the top part of the engine was the part that was hurt the most, which means there's now a lot of play in the upper support for the crankshaft. Of course, we still need to check that the cylinder and rings are in good condition, and to do that, I'm going to use my compression tester to find out. Now of course you can use a leak down tester if you have one, but you can use whatever you have on hand, and my compression tester is always in my bag, so that's what I'm going to use. Well, as you can hear from that knocking sound, that's the crankshaft hitting the top of the block. But despite that horrible sound coming from the engine, the reading is still very high at almost 160 psi. That means even though the oil was low most of its life, it was still enough to keep the piston rings happy and undamaged. Now, even though the engine did suffer what I would call some pretty severe damage, for being 10 years old and with almost no maintenance, I think it took it quite well. And for those of you who might be watching and looking for a second-hand mower, but you're not good at doing your own maintenance, I'd recommend one of these. Now, I would not recommend it if it was very expensive, but for a couple of $100s and a decade's worth of service isn't a bad deal. Of course, there are other good mower brands out there to choose from, so the choice is yours to make. Now, I know the smoke show didn't look very good, however, I do take the blame for it. If you're moving a mower and you end up picking up the back wheels just a little bit too high for too long, oil can make it past the rings, causing it to smoke on startup. Now, if I recall our conversation, I think the owner said they paid a little over $400 for this mower over a decade ago, which means at this point, it only cost them $40 a year to own this mower. I don't know about you, but I think they made a great choice when it came to this mower. It's just too bad they didn't check the oil, otherwise I'd say it was going to keep working for another decade. However, I'm pretty sure they'll end up buying a new mower in a year or two, but unfortunately, they're going to go with batteries instead. So my question is, do you think it's easy to diagnose and repair a lawnmower? This is obviously based on your knowledge and skill level, but I'm sure the answers will still be interesting to know. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this project or about your own projects, and I hope to see you in the next video.